This is Yahya Davidi speaking to you from Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. I represent Great Am Hebrew Nations, a movement that finds the lost 10 tribes of Israel now amongst Western peoples. Our proofs derive from the Bible, from rabbinical commentaries to the Bible, and from secular evidence, including historical writings, linguistics, DNA, almost every field of study that may somehow either be considered pertinent to the subject has proofs, provides us proofs, and all of these proofs taken together as one whole prove the case of the lost 10 tribes. Now, their descendants are to be found as ethnic coherent entities amongst Western nations. And that is where they are, that is where we find them. And they are brother nations to the Jewish people. They are brother nations. They are the kinfolk of the Jewish people. And the Jewish people now are located, half of them are located in the state of Israel, and the rest are located overseas in various diasporas, the largest being in the USA, others also being, large ones being in France, Britain, Canada, and other nations. And the Jews are brother nations to the lost 10 tribes of Israel. And the Jewish nation now is undergoing a period of trials, of warfare and hostilities. It has still has to justify itself before the nations of the earth. And it still is expected to abide by higher standards of behavior than other nations are. And it still is fighting for its very existence. And just recently, the Operation Pillar of Defense took place, and we are going to give a quick evaluation of it. This operation took place in the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip borders Egypt on the southwest, Israel on the southeast and north. In other words, it has a border with Egypt, and on one hand, and on the other hand with Israel, with the territory of Israel. Its population is about 1.6 million people. Perhaps less, but it has a high rate of increase. Most of its population is Sunni Muslims. Christians and others are persecuted and driven out or put to death. This is true, look it up. And it is not a tolerant area. It was once part of the Palestinian entity, and then it established its own being, as if to say. Gaza, this area of Gaza was part of the Promised Land that the Almighty declared should belong to Israel. It was part of the Promised Land. The region of Gaza later fell within the territory allocated to the tribe of Judah. In practice, Gaza, historically in the Bible, was part of the region occupied by the Philistines who fought against the Israelites, as we find in the books of Judges and the books of Samuel, and later on also. And that is where we get the name Palestine from. Palestine is derived from a Latin pronunciation of the word Philistia, meaning land of the Philistines. But Jews had always lived in Gaza. They lived there. At some stages there were a majority of the population, or a near majority of the population, and the population of Jews fluctuated. There was always a Jewish presence in that region, till 1929, when the Arabs rebelled against the British, and they had riots, and all the Jews were forced to leave. After that, there was the 1948 war, when, as a result of which Egypt took over the rule of Gaza, but even though it did not formally annex it. Gaza was considered part of Palestine. And then we had the Six-Day War, 1967, when Gaza was conquered by Israel. And Gaza was conquered by Israel until we had the Oslo Accords, which were a treacherous stab in the back, a treacherous deal that was done to Israel by other nations and by traitors within the Israeli establishment. And the result of this, the Palestinian Authority, or the Palestine Authority, was set up. It's given a certain degree of autonomy. And it was centered in the West Bank, but it had control over Gaza as well. And the Palestinian Authority ruled over the population, ruled over the Arab population, had an autonomous arrangement, but Israel maintained control of the airspace, the territorial waters and border crossings apart from the land border with Egypt. All the rest was controlled by Israel. Israel also had settlements in Gush Katif, so it was part of the area. And these Israeli settlements, there were 15 of them. They were small settlements, but they existed and they were quite productive. Economically, they were viable, highly viable. They produced some of the best vegetables and flowers of anywhere in the world, and their techniques were copied by developing countries. At all events, these settlements also, through the civilian presence and the military organisation that was needed to protect them and to look after them, that in effect gave Israel a de facto entry into the region and a control from a distance of the population. The Palestinians could not smuggle in weapons, they could not, as they now do, as they didn't have control of tunnels connecting them with Egypt because of these Israeli settlements. Also, there was a lot of Palestinians working in Gush Katif settlements, so they had a day-by-day contact with the Israelis, and therefore was a constant exchange of information. And the Palestinians in Gaza could not organise very well against the Israelis. They did do something. Something was set up. There were activities against Israel were undertaken from Gaza, but it was limited. They were always vulnerable. And then along came the disengagement. The disengagement when Israel pulled out of the Gush Katif area. And Israel seems to have done this unilaterally. There's no known reason why Israel did this. So several explanations have been put forward. One of them was put forward by Yair Lapid. Yair Lapid is the son of someone who was the head of an anti-religious political party, and he himself was a leading news commentator. He now heads his own political party. In this year 2012, in the coming elections, he will head his own political party, and he is critical of the religious. He is against religious coercion, you could say, but he is open to Judaism, and he is objective to some degree. And he says that the reason for the disengagement was, in fact, ideologically motivated. It was to degrade and to debase the religious Jews. The national religious Jews were considered to be too uppity, to have too much independence, and to be in the direction of taking over duly influencing the Israeli public. So it was decided to take them down a peg, to reduce their status, to debase them and to turn the population against them. And they were associated or identified with Gush Katif, but so through pulling out of Gush Katif, it was intended to hurt them. That is what Yair Lapid said. And Arik Sharon at that time had just become Prime Minister, and he had said beforehand that he would consider withdrawing from Gush Katif. Arik Sharon was considered an ultra-nationalist politician. He had done a lot of good for the Jewish people and for settlement on the West Bank and so on. And so most of us at that time we ignored the statement of Sharon. It was not emphasised. He had said it. I noticed it. Most people had not. But he said other things. He was always talking and saying things. So we did not want to relate to this. Hoped it was just something that someone says in absence of mind. It does not really intend. But Sharon did really intend it. Our friend Rabbi Abraham Feld, he is a rabbi, and he is also a person who has his own social operation, helping people. And then, in addition to that, he is also a political commentator. He is involved with Israeli politicians, and he gives advice to them, and also to newspaper writers and political commentators. And he was certain, he had a feeling that Sharon would indeed do what he said he would do, and he would pull out from Gush Katif, as indeed he did. Another factor concerning Sharon himself, Sharon was a victim, possibly a victim of blackmail. Sharon is now a multi-millionaire. He and his children, his family are all millionaires, and he received bribes. He received a lot of money from different people. And in Israel we have the state attorney office, the prosecutor, public prosecutor, and they are run by left-wing people, and they have agendas. They have political agendas, and they orient their cases. They accept, or their attitude towards the application of the law according to their religious, or according to their political, ideological orientation, which is usually against Judaism, against Jewish nationalism. They have a more of an internationalist, lovey-dovey sort of attitude. A liberal, ultra-liberal, you could say. On the whole, there are exceptions. I'm talking on the whole, making very broad generalizations, but you can, I'm not saying things that are not known. I'm not inventing the wheel, as if to say. This is well known, and it is something that they themselves admit to. Not necessarily in the same terminology, but they do say what we are saying they say or believe. And they have as if to say, they discriminate in how they apply the application of the law that they are supposed to apply impartially. And we also have the reality of Israel. Israel, in many cases, many ways, is a third world country. Israel is above a very state of the art development. It is in the lead in many fields. In other fields, it is very backward. We said that the country hasn't existed that long. It's had all kinds of trouble and all kinds of pressures. It's existing under unnatural circumstances by the sheer willpower of its population. So there's a lot of things that have not been sorted out properly. In some ways, Israel is a third world country and have a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of laws and a lot of tax regulations and all kinds of requirements that are not realistic, and everyone knows they're not realistic. And most people, most politicians, and also most businessmen ignore them or get by without abiding by them. So, and very few can manage to do everything that is required of them as it should be required. And so everyone is more or less compromised in some way, potentially. And when the prosecutor, the state attorney office, decides to get on someone's case, there's a good chance that they're going to find something. This is well known, and it's been said, and this has also been said by others. And it's not, once again, it's not something new. And not saying things that are not known. And so Sharon too. Sharon had been caught up in a series of bribery affairs. So had his children, his two sons. And they had received money, amounting into millions of dollars. One of the people they received money from was Cyril Kern or Karel Kern of South Africa. Another one was Martin Schlapp of Austria. Schlapp has links to the German government and to the German intelligence organization. He was also in the past connected to East German intelligence activities, and other elements who were also into Sharon, and Sharon was into their pockets, as if to say. And the state attorney people more or less reached an agreement with the Sharon, a de facto agreement that go ahead with the disengagement and we'll leave you alone. Don't go ahead with the disengagement and you'll be in trouble. This is what happened, and so Gush Katif was evacuated. A disengagement took place. There were 17 Israeli settlements in the southern Gaza Strip known as Gush Katif. This was also essential to Israel's security in case of a future war or conflict with Egypt. The possession of Gush Katif would have been very valuable, and if, God forbid, we ever have to go to war with Egypt, its lack might be very harmful to us. And there were at that time 8,600 Jewish residents in the area, and they were all evicted. They were taken out and they were thrown out of the place. Some of them were given compensation, but not very generously, and it was quite mean. They were demeaned, they were debased, they were humiliated. And there were a lot of things that went wrong, and there were things which were just bad about this whole operation. All events, the operation took place, it happened. Before the Gush Katif was evacuated, we have to admit something. We had to admit that Gush Katif had been under constant attack by the Palestinians. The people living in there were prepared for this. They lived with it. and they were prepared to suffer it rather than have to leave their homes. But they did suffer. More than 6,000 mortar bombs and custom rockets were sent at them. At least 15 Israelis were killed, others were wounded, and others traumatized. These are not great large figures, they're not a large number of people. More people in an equally sized population in the USA suffer from criminal attacks and from traffic accidents. But nevertheless it happened. Where it happened, it has an effect. It's a little bit different from something that happens by way of nature, as if to say, than if it happens through acts of war. The psychological implications and effects are different. And the feeling for that this area was vulnerable and difficult to defend may also have been a factor in withdrawing from the region. So the withdrawal took place, the disengagement was carried out. As in the meantime, in other words, in the meantime, the disengagement was carried out in 2005 and 2006. In 2006, shortly afterwards, there were elections throughout the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority at that time encompassed the region of Gaza, the Arabs in Gaza, and the Arabs in the West Bank. And Hamas won the election. Hamas won the election. It received 42% of the votes and a majority of the delegates. It should have been given the rulership over the West Bank and also over the Gaza Strip. But Hamas happens to be a Nazi type organisation. It is associated with the Muslim Brothers. It is dedicated to the extermination of the Jewish people. It's worse than the Nazis. The Nazis did not say what they were going to do so expressly as Hamas has been saying it. Hamas exists in order to exterminate the Jewish people in the land of Israel, and they have a fanatical, suicidal determination to do that. So, Hamas could not be countenanced. We could not allow Hamas to rule in the area, because Hamas would just immediately be sending out suicide bombers all over the place. Israel, the USA and the EU, even the EU, refused to recognise Hamas rule. So Hamas was prevented by taking force in the West Bank. But in Gaza, it was not prevented from taking over. So Hamas, so to say, broke up away from the Palestinian Authority and took control by force of the area of Gaza, and in the process it killed at least 1,000 of its fellow Arabs. People who disagreed with it were just taken out and shot in the street, and this can, it's also not empty claims. This can be verified by a quick look at the video clips on YouTube. They were filmed doing this. They glorified in doing it. They are proud of what they did, and they took over. And Hamas Charter is more or less an anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish. Their charter, their constitution, the thing that they base themselves on, that they declared from 1988, it says that their whole reason for being is to exterminate the Jews in Palestine, to raise the banner of Allah of every inch of Palestine. It says, it quotes from a saying, not in the Quran, but in the Hadith, a type of oral tradition, other writings of Muhammad, or attributed to Muhammad, where it says the day of judgment will not come about until Muslims fight the Jews, killing the Jews. When the Jew will hide behind the stones and trees will say, "O Muslim, O Abdullah, there's a tree behind me, come and kill him." And that's what they say. They say, in other words, they believe that in order to bring the Messiah, in order to further the stages of redemption, they should kill the Jews. This is a religious obligation according to them. This is what they believe in. They should look it up in Wikipedia. This is not something that we have invented. This is something that is known, and that's something that they talk about and boast about. And that they say that there can be no negotiated settlement with Israel. With Israel. Jihad is the only answer. And that every Palestinian has a personal duty to fulfill this. And that's what they say. And they also talk about the Jews. They believe the Jews are evil, and the Jews are trying to take over the world, and they believe in all kinds of conspiracy theories and the protocols of the elders of Zion, and this is all in their constitution, written down in black and white. And it's not something that you have to look it up, or some type of obscure claims of a researcher who may or may not be correct. This is something that is there. And this is what Hamas did. After Hamas took over Gaza, they began to attack Israel. They began to fire fire rockets and all kinds of things at Israelis, and to send terrorist teams across the border to attack Israel. And this was an ongoing occurrence until Israel was forced to retaliate. In Operation Cast Lead in 2008, there was the Gaza war, and Israel invaded and killed some of the Hamas militants, destroyed much of the military infrastructure. And then it withdrew, but it left a partial blockade of Gaza. Only a partial blockade was in effect allowing most of the material to go through. But there was a partial blockade, and a lot of propaganda was made against Israel because of this. And then there were then they sent that ship, the Mavi Marmara, from Turkey to try and break the blockade. And 9 people of these activists were killed, and they're actually all from Turkey. 8 of them were from Turkey. And I saw, by chance, I saw the biography of one of them. Who was he? He was a martial arts artist, martial arts expert in Turkey. And they came and approached him. They said, come and beat up some Jews and get some money. So he was a thug, in other words, a paid thug. And he went with them, and they did. They tried. They caught Israeli soldiers who weren't expecting violent resistance when they boarded the ship. And they caught them, and they beat them up, and they tried to kill them. They caused them physical damage. And the Israelis, in self-defense, killed them, shot them. 8 of them were shot. So what do you want? This is an occupational hazard. Someone who's a hired thug who goes around beating people is liable to meet with accidents, and this is what happened to them. Anyway, this is what was happening. All these things were ongoing, and all the time there were continuing attacks against Israel, continuing attacks after the Gaza war. The Hamas had replenished its supplies of rockets, and its hostilities had increased. There were daily attacks against Israel until we were forced to take this recent operation, Amud Anan, in Hebrew, pillar of cloud, known in English, or given over in English as pillar of defense. And it's taken from the pillar of cloud in the wilderness, as we find in the Bible. When the Israelis came out of Egypt, when they travelled in the wilderness, there was a pillar of fire leading them at night and a pillar of cloud during the day. And this pillar of cloud in tradition represents divine providence, represents divine protection of the Israelite people. And this is what this operation pillar of cloud was to project to us. We have in Exodus 13, verses 21 to 22, by day the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so that they could travel by day or night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left his space in front of the people. Numbers 14. To tell the inhabitants of this land about it, they have already heard you, that you, O Lord, are with these people, and that you, O Lord, have been seen face to face, that your cloud stays over them, and you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Deuteronomy 1:3. Who went in the way before you to search you out a place to pitch your tents, in fire by night to show you by way that you should go, and by cloud by day. Nehemiah 9:12. By day you led them with a pillar of cloud, and by night with a pillar of fire to give them light in the way they were to take. Nehemiah 9:19. Because of your great compassion you did not abandon them in the desert. By day the pillar of cloud did not cease to guide them on their path, nor the pillar of fire by night to shine on the way they were to take. The pillar of cloud represents divine guidance and protection. And this was a response to the constant daily provocations that Israel had been suffering from. The rocket bombardments, terrorist teams. Every day they were shooting rockets at us. People were being killed, people were being injured, property was being damaged, school children were being traumatized. The Arabs seemed to want to hit kindergartens and schoolyards and so on, and through miracles very few casualties took place compared to the number of rockets that were fired and the number of buildings that were actually hit and damaged when the occupants would just happen to be out of the house, and all kinds of daily miracles were happening and taking place. But despite this, we were stretching the point a little bit too much. We were not reacting, and so here now and again people were getting killed. Incidentally, my friend Arnold Roth from Australia, whose daughter was killed in a terrorist attack, he runs a daily report service. It's called The Ongoing War blog, and he gives day by day an account of the rocket attacks that were happening and may still be going on. He gives a day by day, up to date description of what is happening, full reportage of this, and because sometimes the media does not report it for some reason, or the media diminishes its importance, minimises its importance. It happens every day, so they just ignore it. In the same way, so that Assad in Syria has killed about 40,000 of his own people, and no one really cares anymore. It's just something that the Arabs do to each other, so we don't have to care about it. That's how they think. But if a Jew hurts an Arab or looks in the wrong direction at an Arab, the whole world puts it on in its headlines and shouts out about how cruel we are. And this is the reality. This is what happened. We should evaluate what was going on. What can we learn from this? First of all, we can learn that the Almighty is continuing to look after the Jewish people. As if God wants the world to know that Israel, the state of Israel, and the people of Israel is being looked after, that God Almighty has put His protection over us. 1,400 rockets were fired at us, and there were very few casualties. 4 casualties, 5 casualties were killed. People were killed, and this is a tragedy. One of the persons killed was an Israeli Arab, and 3 of them were Chabad activists. One of them was a lady emissary of Chabad in India. She was in India with her husband, and their task is to help Israelis and Jewish backpackers who find themselves in India, and to give them a place to stay and meals and a little bit of Judaism. And this is what she worked at, and she was killed, and so were other Chabad people. And it's a tragedy, but compared to what it could have been, God forbid, it's very small. Very few Israelis were actually hurt. When you take into consideration 1,400, more than 1,400 rockets were killed, and every single one of them is capable of killing or destroying a building, or destroying a good part of a building. And they were being fired, and they were not hitting, or they were hitting, and the people happened to be out of the houses. A great number of residences were hit, but thank God, no one was harmed. Or people were harmed, but relatively speaking, very few, much less people were harmed than could have, God forbid, have been harmed. This is a miracle. We should recognise miracles in the forms that they take, and this too, which shows the protection of God on the whole for us. And Israel does suffer. In Israel, people do suffer. Accidents do happen. Disasters do occur. There's hardship in Israel, but so the Almighty does take it out on us for our sins. But He decided that He doesn't want to take us out on us through war. He is protecting us, and He is showing the world that His protection is over us. And the same thing happened in past encounters. Also in the first Gulf War, when they attacked, when the Americans invaded Iraq for the first time in 1991, and they attacked Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein fired rockets, fired Scud missiles, 42 Scud missiles at Israel, and one person was killed. There was a lot of damage was happened, but then 2 whole streets were blown up. All entire apartment buildings were devastated, and it just happened through divine providence that at the very moment everyone was outside, this and that, they were across the street. For some reason or other, people were saved, and and this happened day after day, and even now it's happening. A few Israelis were killed, and others were injured, and property damage was caused, and others were frightened and or traumatized. The children were adversely affected. It's not a simple matter. We still have to repent, and we were told that God's protection is with us. He is helping us, but only to a limited degree. We have to repent, and we have to go back and reform ourselves and make ourselves better people, and do what we have to do according to the Bible, according to what the Almighty wants us to do, and He will help us. As he has shown, he is capable of, he's always capable of helping us, but as we have had hands-on experience that he will help us if we even do a little bit to deserve it or to come to meet him. And so this is one thing that we learned from this encounter. We had it impressed upon us afresh. We had this knowledge refreshed within our consciousness. And we also hurt the enemy. Leading Hamas commanders were killed. The Hamas infrastructure suffered a severe blow. They fired rockets, used up all their supplies of rockets, and then the Israeli Air Force destroyed most of what was left. They destroyed a lot of their buildings and a lot of their infrastructure and their supplies and their oil, which they used to make money from. Hamas had a monopoly over oil, and that's where it got a good portion of its income, and all of their storage of oils was destroyed, and a lot of things were done to them. It'll take them a little while to recover. Iran, Egypt and other countries, maybe Japan, as Japan has also helped them in the past, will help them, but nevertheless it might not be that easy, and we might be able to do more to interfere with their future recovery in a military sense. So on the whole, the effects were positive. Also, we saw that Britain and America were displayed great alacrity. They were very quick to come and support Israel and very firm about their support of Israel. So was the USA. And they came right out in support of us very strongly. Australia also came out in support of Israel, but a little bit reservedly, and so did Germany. This Germany didn't really have much choice. This is another story. But anyway, we have to see that the countries that did support Israel, those were countries that came right out openly in support of Israel, are nearly all Israelite nations: Britain, Canada, and the USA. We don't know what happened behind the scenes. The Obama administration may have placed a great deal of pressure on Israel to desist from invading the land, from invading Gaza, from doing more than they did, but at least in the public, what the public sees that is also very important. What the public saw that at least in the open, the Obama administration backed up Israel, helped Israel, supported Israel, and has even promised to help Israel recover from the economic losses that it has incurred. And there were economic losses. Businesses were closed down. People lost work. A lot of property was destroyed. There's a disruption to the economy and so on. But even this may be overcome. And in some ways it also could prove a blessing. And also paradoxically, sometimes such events cause an increase of interest from overseas. Maybe more people coming. More Jews will come to Israel. And also more Jews will live here. And more Jews will invest in Israel. Or religious Jews will come and learn, and they also give to the economy. They do much more than people realise, and on the whole, the overall effects might be very well. And also Jews all over the world have every time something like this happens, they have a certain arousal of Jewish consciousness, and this too could have very positive effects for all of us. We saw those negative effects where the 4 Israelis were killed. Also, we saw a peace agreement was made with Egypt, and certain clauses that might be difficult to put in effect that might harm us. We don't know what Obama is planning to do for or against Israel. This is an open question. The Vatican came out against Israel. The Vatican, there's a certain Cardinal Razazi or something like that in the Vatican. He more or less said that Israel is killing Palestinian babies. He repeats the blood libel from the Middle Ages that the church was partially responsible for, and they themselves were often guilty of what they were accusing others of doing. What they were unjustly accusing others of doing, they themselves, it turns out, often did. So there's another thing, another point. We don't want to go into this, and there were good and bad everywhere, especially amongst those who against us. On the other side, there's more bad. And but this is what we have. This is the overall the effects of this operation were positive. We saw that the third world, most of the third world countries are against us. Most of the world in effect is against Israel. The Israelite nations, those nations we identify as being of Israelite origin, are for us. And we have Israel is taken a few steps forward, we would say. But the problem has not disappeared. The problem has not gone away. It's still there. The Palestinians are still there, and the Palestinians are still going to attack Israel. And the Hamas beliefs, the Hamas dedication to destroy Israel is still in effect. And not only that, amongst them, they even have a jihad. They have a new movement, which is even more fanatical than the Hamas, and that is also coming up and taking over. We get from one crazy Nazi maniac to someone who's twice as bad. That's the evolution. Seems to say they have a regression, not evolution, but a regression. But that is a problem that we have with them, and this is a problem will not go away in the States. We have a problem with the Arabs. The Arabs are against the Jewish people, and the Arabs want to destroy the Jewish people. And the Jews are too good. We have this point. The Jews are too humane. The Jews have too much humanity. And the Israeli Jews are not up to killing people all the time. They're too humane for their own good. Hamas hides its rocket launching sites and its operational centres in populated areas. It even uses hospitals and schools. And we even have video clips of Hamas people setting up rockets and then running away and grabbing a child with them in case the Israelis are about to shoot them, because the Israelis won't shoot if there's a chance of hitting the child. And this is their mentality, and this is what they're doing. And they take advantage of the innate humane kindness and mercy that most Jews have. Also, the world is against Israel. Israel cannot react, cannot treat the Arabs the way the Arabs treat themselves. They cannot just shoot people like they do in Syria or like they do in the Sudan. Because the whole world is very hypocritical. It demands standards of behaviour from the Jews which are much higher than anyone else is required to display. And and Israel does meet these standards, surprisingly. Very often Israel does meet these standards. Colonel Richard Kemp, he was a former British Armed Forces commander in Afghanistan. He's also a senior expert in the British establishment on anti-terrorist activities and an advisor. And he testified that during the Gaza war, also during the present war, Gaza war is also known as Operation Cast Lead, Israeli Defence Forces did more to safeguard the rights of civilians in the combat zone than any other army in the history of warfare. And he knows the history of warfare. He lectures on it. He writes about it. He is an expert in this field, and he testifies that Israel has done more than any other country ever did to protect and to take care of the civilian populations on the other side during the course of fighting. And this is and the present campaign is even more, as this aspect of Israeli military policy has even been put into effect even more, as if it was to say as if it was possible in the present campaign, the Pillar of Cloud campaign. This is what we're faced with, but you can't carry on like this. It's obvious you can't carry on like this, and so the only solution is to take the Arabs and humanely, in a humane manner, transfer them to somewhere else, send them out, send them to another area. This is in effect what the Bible tells us to do, and what is prophesied will take place. The prophecy indicates that the 10 tribes headed by Ephraim, together with Judah, will transfer the Arab inhabitants of Gaza and the other Palestinian areas to the west. And the 10 tribes are the western nations. The tribes of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh are represented by the English-speaking peoples. The USA is dominated by Manasseh. Ephraim is represented by Britain and British offshoots such as Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and to a degree South Africa. They represent Ephraim, but nevertheless, numerically, there may be more of Ephraim in the USA than anywhere else. I'm talking about that from the tribe of Ephraim. So in some cases, when we say the Bible says Ephraim, it could also refer to the USA, in certain aspects of the USA coming into expression. Or in some cases also the Bible uses the term Ephraim as a generic expression applying to all of the 10 tribes together. At all events, this is what we have to take into account. Ephraim together with Judah will transfer the Palestinians somewhere else. Look in Isaiah chapter 11. In Isaiah chapter 11 it says it shall come to pass, starting from verse 11. 11:11, Isaiah. Shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people who are left from Assyria and Egypt, from Pathros and Cush, from Elam and Shinar, from Hamath and the islands of the sea. The Zohar commentary on the Bible, or the traditional mystical religious work of spiritual application, it says that these verses are applied to the lost tribes. So we also see, according to the simple meaning of the verses, that this is what they are being applied to, but it's good to see that other authorities also affirm our understanding. He will set up a banner, see you verse 12, 11 verse 12, he will set up a banner for the nations and assemble the outcasts of Judah, gather together, disperse, and will assemble the outcasts of Judah, and gather together, disperse of Judah, from the four corners of the earth. And so with the outcasts of Israel are the 10 tribes, dispersed of Judah are the Jews. We have the Israel from the 10 tribes, and we have Judah representing the Jews. Also, verse 13, the envy of Ephraim shall depart, and verse 3 of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not harass Ephraim. So this is an important point, that right up until the end, even though Ephraim and Judah will also have a natural affinity for each other, a natural sympathy for each other, a natural identification with each other, there will also be a certain tension will exist, certain natural antagonism between the two. Will continue right up until the very end, when they will make peace and work together and come together and be one nation, as it says in verse 13, chapter 11, Isaiah chapter 11 verse 14, but they shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines towards the west, together they shall plunder the people of the east, they shall lay their hands on Edom and Moab, the people of Ammon shall obey them. The Lord will utterly destroy the tongue of the sea of Egypt, and with his mighty hand he will shake his fist over the river and strike it in 7 streams. Make men cross over dry shod. There will be a highway for the remnant of his people, who will be left from Assyria, as it was for Israel when in the day that he came up from the land of Egypt. So all these verses are very important, and it will say something. Now we are concentrating upon a specific point. We saw in 11:13, also the envy of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not harass Ephraim. Right up to the very end, there was a certain antagonism between Ephraim and Judah. And then it says they were joined together, and in verse 14 it says they shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines toward the west. I want to mention this verse in our commentaries. We explain. You may see our commentaries on our website, www.britam.org, and also Hebrew Nations, HebrewNations.com, 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 where we explain these verses, and we know this verse actually, it says in Hebrew, it says, they shall fly the Philistines away westward. That's what it says in Hebrew. In other words, they shall put there, that's how the verse can be understood to say, they shall cause the Philistines to fly away Yama, towards the west. They shall fly the Philistines away towards the west. In other words, they shall transfer the Philistines somewhere else, somewhere far away, where they can do what they like and develop themselves and be happy and peaceful, but not waste their time trying to kill innocent and good people like the Jews are. They should be taken away to some other place. They can be sent to North Africa, that is west of the land of Israel, or to South America, Brazil and Paraguay, and similar nations should be able to accommodate them quite well, and they would do quite well there too. They can work, and they're not, and sometimes they're quite intelligent, and there's hope for them under right circumstances, and they should be given another chance somewhere else. Not in a region of tension and of antagonism and learning hatred and in Muslim fanaticism. That is not going to get them anywhere. It's not healthy for anyone. And this is at all events, Ephraim and Judah together shall fly the Philistines away westward. They shall move them away by aeroplane. They shall fly them. And elsewhere also the Bible speaks about air flight. The Bible foresaw the flight in aeroplanes. And this is point about flying the Philistines away westward. Is a commandment. It's commanded by the Bible. The Bible tells us, it tells the Israelites when they came into the land of Israel that they had to expel all of the previous inhabitants, and said if you don't do it to them, they'll do it to you. It says they even warned that you will be exterminated by them if, God forbid, you don't do it to them, if you don't move them out. See Numbers 33, verse 50. Now the Lord spoke to Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho, saying, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you have crossed the Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you. Destroy all their engraved stones, destroy all their moulded images, Demolish all their high places. You shall dispossess the inhabitants of the land and dwell in it. For I have given you the land to possess. You shall divide the land by lot as an inheritance among your families. To the larger you shall give a larger inheritance. To the smaller you shall give a smaller inheritance. There everyone's inheritance shall be whatever falls to him by lot. You shall inherit according to the tribes of your fathers. But if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, then it shall be that those whom you let remain shall be irritants in your eyes and thorns in your sides. And they shall harass you in the land where you dwell. Moreover, it shall be that I will do to you as I thought to do to them. In other words, move them out, get rid of them, transfer them elsewhere, or else they are liable to do that to you when you are vulnerable. So this is a message that we have to internalize, we have to think about it and realize that God Almighty is calling us. He is talking to us all day long in every way, and we have to listen to Him. Thank you very much. May God bless all of you. Thank you.